Netflix would have got away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids. Hey everyone, this is Digital Charcuterie. My name is James. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you're looking forward to that new Scooby-Doo live action TV show over on Netflix, hit that subscribe button because I'm going to talk about it because I love Scooby-Doo. I grew up watching Scooby-Doo. I saw the movies in the theater, those two movies. And then the one thing I love about Scooby-Doo is he just doesn't go away. Like this franchise is just here somehow has just outlasted everything else in so many ways, right? Like every once in a while, there's like this straight to video movie of Scooby-Doo. And I remember my nieces and nephew, when they were kids, they would just randomly watch Scooby-Doo out of nowhere. And I don't even know if they knew what it was. They would just put it on because Scooby-Doo is just always around and people seem to love Scooby-Doo. And like pot jokes and all that aside, it's easy to understand why, right? It's a group of teenagers looking for like mysteries, and they're paranormal, but they're always not. It's always some old guys are in disguise, and it was always a lot of fun. And then you bring in Scrappy-Doo, and you have even more fun with Scrappy-Doo than anything else. But look, in March, Netflix announced that they were going to be making a live-action Scooby-Doo series, and I was like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. I can't wait to see what you're going to do with that. Like I said, I love Scooby-Doo. Wouldn't mind seeing where we're going with all of this. Now we got over on what's on Netflix.com. They have this article up here. Netflix Scooby-Doo, the live action series, will feature young cast eyeing filming to start for 2026. After numerous stories about Scooby-Doo heading to Netflix throughout 2024, the streamer finally confirmed that they'd greenlit its yet-to-be-titled Scooby-Doo series in March 2025. And since then, all has been quiet until now. Set to be produced by Warner Bros. Television along with Berlanti Productions and Midnight Radio with Joseph Applebaum and Scott Rosenberg as showrunners, this will be the first time the classic cartoon characters created by Hanna-Barbera have ever been put into a live-action series. As a reminder, the official logline for the new Netflix series, set to consist of 8 one-hour episodes, is as follows. A modern reimagining of the iconic mystery-solving group of teens and their very special dog during their final summer at camp. Old friends Shaggy and Daphne get embroiled in a haunting mystery surrounding a lonely, lost Great Dane puppy that may have been a witness to a supernatural murder. Together with a pragmatic and scientific townie Velma and the strange but ever so handsome new kid Freddy, they set out to solve the case that is pulling each of them into a creepy nightmare that threatens to expose all of their secrets. Beyond that news, it's been quiet over the spring and into the summer, but bits and pieces have begun to trickle out. For example, while the series didn't receive an official title upon its announcement on the WGA, it's listed as Scooby-Doo, the live-action series. Over the past 24 hours, social media has been set alight with the news that filming would begin on the new series sometime fall 2025. As captured by the aggregators on X, it first went live a variety interview with the Warner Bros. TV's group's Channing Dungey covered a lot of ground, and one of the mentions was their upcoming live-action series of Scooby-Doo. In the original article, which has now been scrubbed of the fall mention, you can see the original article here on YouTube. It originally stated, and then we have coming up a little bit later this fall, the Scooby-Doo live-action series for Netflix. That line has now been updated to, and then we have coming up a little bit later, the Scooby-Doo live-action series for Netflix. I actually, when I was doing this video, I read the original article a couple of days ago, and then when I went back to reread it for this video, I noticed that they made that adjustment. There's no mention or update in the article about why this fall mention was removed. You could argue the original wording was more of a release date than a filming date, but either way, it's been removed. So when will filming start? According to multiple listings, they indicate that the fall 2025 start may have been a little too optimistic, with sources pointing towards a Q1 2026 start instead at the earliest. Still, we don't know yet where it'll be filmed, and as always, filming schedules are subject to change. And then you got Scooby. Look at that. Scooby-Doo episode 101, Josh Applebaum and Scott Rosenberg. We can confirm that everyone will be in the new series, including Fred, Daphne, Shaggy, Scooby, and of course Velma. What's interesting, though, is that one source tells us they're aiming for young actors to play the troupe with leads around the ages of 14 to 17 eyed for the roles. This contrasts with the movie from 2002, where much of the cast were in the mid to late 20s, or in the case of Matthew Lillard, early 30s. In the animated series, the characters have mostly been in their late teens. Given the story tidbits we've had so far, their younger age makes sense. In addition, we're told that the series is very much aiming for a Stranger Things tone. Speculating from there, we're guessing that means a bright and bold aesthetic. We'll keep you posted on any new Netflix Scooby-Doo news as and when we get it. So that's what's on Netflix.com. Great article and great to hear what they're doing. I like the idea of 14 to 17. I like the idea that you're going to take inspiration from Stranger Things. Stranger Things is obviously Netflix's baby. They love Stranger Things. Fans love Stranger Things. It takes a decade and a half to go from season to season, and that show is going to be wrapping up and ending late this year into, I guess, the very last day of this year is when it's going to end. That really schedule, I think, is stupid, but whatever. I think that this is a great idea for Scooby-Doo. I think if they are able to maneuver Scooby-Doo into filling that void that Stranger Things is going to leave for the streamer, I think that's a great idea right there, because you have a known IP now. So you're subbing out a now known IP, which was unknown, and now a known IP with another known IP, an IP that people trust and know and love. And even those movies from 20 plus years ago, it's crazy that, when I saw them in theater, I was like, oh, those are fun. And I've watched them several times since then, most recently last week. but one thing that I loved about them is that the adults now who were kids then, they hold those movies in like a higher esteem than I would. I enjoy those movies, but they see them as this nostalgia stuff. And this is a franchise that people trust and they go back to over and over again. And now you need to get a new generation to come on board the Scooby-Doo train, right? You have to find how do you relate to a younger generation. Obviously, TikTok's out of the question because you're on Netflix, so you want to go on Netflix. And the younger generation, just given from my young niece, she's obsessed with Stranger Things and the 80s and that vibe. And I don't think Scooby-Doo is going to take place in the 80s. I think that would be a mistake. But if you want the characters to look how they look, they should look like they're dressed late 60s maybe. I don't know. We'll see what they do there. But I just think it's a great idea to do the Stranger Things vibe for this. You are dealing with the paranormal, right? They're going to be chasing after some ghosts, like Scooby-Doo might have seen some stuff. You're going to also have them all kind of meeting. So maybe Scooby-Doo is like the 11 of the group, and Scooby kind of comes into it, and Freddy, as he's called, is going to be someone that they don't know or trust or can rely on. I would love to know if Red Herring is going to be in this. We'll see. I doubt it, but that would just be the icing on the cake for me. But I do like going back to the roots of Scooby-Doo in like the early days, because you can keep going older, but you start young and then you can progress the story. And hopefully it doesn't take, 5 years between seasons like it did for Stranger Things. But again, filling that void that Stranger Things is going to leave on the streamer is going to be massive. They're going to be looking for a replacement for that show. And if Scooby-Doo can do it, which I think it can, I think, as long as your story and it's all about characters. So you modernize these characters. I mean, your characters are pretty solid. So you modernize them a little bit, keep them who they are, keep them fresh, make it kind of funny, a little bit scary, like a little bit scarier than it should be, a little bit daunting. And I think kids and adults were going to be drawn to this and watch it. One of my favorite things as a kid growing up in Ontario, Canada, is we have this in Toronto, but we have this thing called Canada's Wonderland. It's the greatest theme park of all time. It's an amusement park. But back in the 80s and 90s, they had Hanna-Barbera Land, and they had a ride called the Ghoster Coaster. You would eat lunch in the Flintstone machine, but they had a ride called the Ghoster Coaster. And you would go on, for kids, and you go on the Ghoster Coaster, and when you went up, there was Scooby and Shaggy all like shaking, and it was all Hanna-Barbera stuff. And I'm bringing that up because Scooby-Doo, like Flintstones was fantastic, Jetsons is great, Yogi Bear is amazing. But Scooby-Doo was a little bit dark, a little bit dangerous, but hilarious because it played on those. It played on those fears and stuff. And if this show can tap into that, I think we got Scooby-Doo for a whole new generation. I'm really excited to see what they're going to bring. What can they do? And hopefully they don't let us down. But we'll see. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Hit the like button, subscribe button, and until next time, may you be the master of your own universe.